I don't think for a minute I ever thought that I was brave in anything I did. I think what I was instead is simply dogged and determined. I think it's a waste to live a life and not make it exactly what you want it to be. I think that's my great trait, that I just keep pushing and pushing until I get everything exactly like I want it.
Oh my gosh, Barbara Corcoran rocks.
She doesn't think outside the box. She thinks outside the box that's outside the box.
Okay, the truth, were you forced to be here or you just want to get out of a little work?
Barbara's a piece of work.
Every big, successful thing that really pushed me ahead only came if I had a tremendous belly flop.
She had some hardship in there in her early days as a young woman, young girl, that made her who she is.
She really built a business from scratch, from absolutely nothing.
Entrepreneurship and taking risks is not for everyone.
I knew when I saw a superstar in my midst, and I felt this woman is a huge presence.
She's an achiever. And against all odds, she gets what she wants.
Another round of applause for Barbara Corcoran.
I grew up in a little town in New Jersey, and I was one of 10 kids. We were the largest family in the town.
It was right on the Hudson River. We had a Palisade Amusement Park up above us on the cliffs.
It was a little crazy. A lot of people, a lot of babies always around.
My mom was definitely the powerhouse in the family. She ran the household. And we only had 2 bedrooms and 10 kids. That's a hard thing to do. The worst part about growing up for me was I was a dunce in school. I was labeled the dumb kid just because I couldn't learn to read or write.
Because she had undiagnosed dyslexia, I think that was a real drive. Plus, with all of us, when we're labeled young, those labels stick a little bit.
I spent the entire day hiding so that it wouldn't be called on because it was so painful to read out loud in front of kids who knew how to read when you couldn't read. It was just too painful.
And her mother, she'd say, Barbara, but you have a great imagination.
I got home and I was the king of the block. That's what got my mother to say always to me, "You're a genius, Barbara, you're a genius."
And I think that gave Barbara the confidence to be who she was and who she is now.
Well, I feel like she worked through to put herself through college. I can't imagine Mom and Dad could afford to pay for anyone to go to college.
No, I think she was one of the first ones to go to college, wasn't she?
I got student loans and had at least 2 or 3 jobs most of the way through college. I was always scrapping for cash.
And then I remember her when she was like trying to like do her own business stuff, the flower business she started.
So I would go to the flower district in the early hours of the morning. They open early. I would decide which flowers to grab, put them in bouquets.
And she had customers that she delivered to every week. Now, the problem that I remember was that she didn't have air conditioning in her car, so the flowers would wilt a little bit.
You know, that was a memorable failure early on.
Waitressing was my favorite job of all the jobs I had, simply because it was on a commission basis. But the night that changed my life was at the Fort Lee Diner, which was the night that Ramon Simone walked in with an accent on each word, I later learned.
Ramon was quite a romantic. She fell hard for him.
He told me that a smart girl like me would probably do very well and be happy in the big city. And so he suggested, why don't you start a real estate business? With your personality, you'd be great at real estate sales. And he gave me the $1,000 to start. He took 51%. I kept 49%. And we started the Corcoran Simone Company.
They had both people who did rental agents and a handful of sales brokers.
The Corcoran Simone Company grew to 14 rental agents. And then one day Ramon Simone came home while I was making pasta for his 3 children. I was their surrogate mom for years. And he announced that he was going to marry my secretary.
I'm sure that it was a very difficult situation for her. Obviously, it would have to be, because he was her partner and the other woman was also in the office.
It was like having a train hit me head on. I couldn't even function. I couldn't even stand up. He told me to take my time moving out. I took about a minute, grabbed my toothbrush, was out of there. And that became, for me, the toughest chapter of my life.
I mean, that kind of stuff happens to people and they gets devastated. Not Barbara, she got more strength out of it. She's like a piece of bamboo. She keeps growing and getting stronger.
And then about a year and a half later, I finally decided, I'm getting rid of him. And I walked in one Friday morning and announced I was going to end the business. And we were going to chop it in half.
Ramon got the A group and Barbara got the B group. They chose almost like a sports team, one after the other.
He said, you know, you'll never succeed without me.
Every time she started to fail, she remembered that he told her she would never make it without.
I can't tell you how often I lean back on those words. I knew that I'd rather die than let him see me not succeed.
And do you know who Ray Simone is?
That was the gasoline that got her going.
Someone insults me, I'm coming at you. It's just a matter of time.
She used to say, feel sorry for yourself for 24 hours because nobody really cares about looking at a sad sack.
And when I collected my agents in the corner and told them we were going to be moving to a new office on Monday, they were excited. And they said, where are we going? And I said, it's a surprise.
She does everything by her gut.
Because it was a surprise. But I worked it out that Friday, rented and signed a lease a few floors above Ray, which I kind of like that, from the same landlord. And I got desks over the weekend. Monday we were open for business, and that was the Corcoran Group.
The minute I walked into Corcoran, I thought, this is where I want to be.
She was omnipresent in our office. She did not sit behind closed doors.
It was like a ball of energy, like a whirlwind, a life force.
Would she make a good employee? No. Would she make a good employer? Yes.
I got along well with Barbara. I was very fond of her. And I thought we could work well together, partly because we were very different.
Esther Kaplan was key to building my business. She put my card in her purse, and inside the purse, she had it set up like a miniature file cabinet.
I think I was never quite as buttoned up as Barbara likes to think I am.
And I knew I had met my partner. I knew I had met my opposite in life.
She has this foresight that's fantastic to watch. You can actually see it in action when you're working with her.
The New York apartment market totally changed in the 80s. What happened was the whole world discovered Manhattan.
Foreigners are lending us enough to make up for the budget deficit and buying up our real estate and companies.
Anyone who was rich wanted to have a pied-à-terre here.
She has a brilliant common sense that she uses all the time.
And so my trick was I went to Bloomingdale's every Saturday morning when they opened, and I walked the high-price aisles with the Gucci bags and all that, and I listened to the languages and then asked the sales clerk, what language were they speaking?
Everything she did had a touch, a Barbara touch.
And then I would run ads in those nationalities' small papers, because there's millions of them in the city, and I would recruit a salesperson who spoke that language. So I was always ahead of the curve.
And she envisioned herself as the queen of Manhattan real estate, and she made it happen.
And she started this from nothing into something that became an important aspect of New York real estate activity.
Barbara Corcoran's a visionary to me.
She empowered women at a time that it was not the thing to do.
There was no brokerage of any size that was headed by a woman.
It was a real male-dominated profession.
She was an anomaly.
But she won them over, and they grew to respect her and to realize that this is a very smart woman.
She encouraged ballsiness, or maybe a different term for women.
Assertiveness, T, come on. Please.
I love being the only woman in a male, totally dominated industry, because I would walk into any kind of a real estate meeting and it was a sea of navy blue and gray suits. And I had my bright red suit on, my short skirt and high heels. I was noticed. When I met Bill Higgins, he was larger than life. He was like wild Bill Higgins.
We moved in together, I guess, in '86. I figured I'd make an honest woman out of her, and we got married in '88.
And in the very first meeting, I commented that my largest competitor had gotten all the quotes in the Sunday real estate section. And it was Bill Higgins who said, you know what, he probably has a PR agent. You could probably publish a report. So it was his idea that I used the following week to publish the Corcoran report.
And it was a revolutionary thing in the real estate industry, and that really, really got her going.
It's really hers. She's the expert in PR.
All it was my 11 sales for the year divided by 11 to come out to an average sale price.
Who has the nerve to do it on 11 sales?
And I positioned it as the average New York City apartment price.
And it caught on like that, like wildfire.
The Corcoran report became famous, and we sent it everywhere, and it brought us a lot of business.
And I learned that that was a very important thing for me to build a business. It was my secret sauce.
She never worried about the risk that she was going to take to a new idea. She just did it.
Well, I know one of the things she did, which again was very different from the real estate firms in the market at the time, is that she connected herself with our advertising.
Her face was the face of the company.
At the time, you see all her faces everywhere, even in Broadway, right?
I remember seeing that in Manhattan and being like blown away that, you know, she's on bus stops, you know?
She did an ad where she took a picture of every agent in the company, and at the time it was small enough to do this, and her picture in the middle, and it was just these tiny little pictures.
It kept Corcoran in people's minds.
Her creativity is what's created her success.
One of the great things I learned from my father is he was the king of fun, and he had a weird sense of fun. So I simply copied my dad's shenanigans and started planning a lot of fun for my agents.
She was always doing different and unusual things.
She had circus elephants at one point,
massage therapists, shoe shine people, people who did your nails at the desk,
hot air balloons.
And we were riding on the camel and horses.
We had dress-up parties where you had to come in costume, and I dictated the costume. And they ran from come in your pajamas, dress as nuns, cross-dress, dress 1940s, whatever I would decide my party that year was going to be.
She's a people person, very creative.
She would wear ridiculous costumes. Like coming in a girdle and a bra.
Barbara is definitely over the top.
What did all the parties and fun times get from me?
Barbara made us feel like we were a special family.
Tremendous company loyalty.
Barbara's big move that she made in the real estate industry was to co-broke with other firms.
Which is where all of the brokerage firms share listings with one another.
Brokers hoarded their own listings. They didn't want to share. And that was a problem because everyone made less money.
I remember when I first started, we had to go to exclusive pitches and hide so that nobody would know we were getting a listing.
Barbara came along and she said, this is rubbish, which is indeed was.
So I decided to change the industry.
That was a tough struggle because she met a lot of opposition with that.
I took all our listings against my salespeople's wishes, and I shared them with the whole community of brokers. They thought I was nuts. My agents thought I was nuts, but I thought they would yield to pressure. If we're going to be kind and share everything, surely they would come around the bend and share back. They never did.
It changed our lives, but it changed the lives of people who were trying to buy something.
And so that went on for about a year and a half.
And she brought that to the Real Estate Board of New York. She really was a pioneer in that.
And then finally, the Real Estate Board of New York mandated that people share listings.
And subsequent to that experience, lots of women came to join the Real Estate Board in leadership roles. She was the first, and it made a huge difference. She opened the door for women to come into this business in a very major way.
Why are banks in trouble now? Real estate. That's really the problem that's been befuddling all of the major banks.
Famously, she was running the company on her credit cards for a while in the early 90s.
It was 1991, and nothing was selling.
So we had no sales, high overhead, and we were going to go down, no doubt at all.
I think people don't realize as an entrepreneur, you know, what Barbara went through and just the battle, you know, just having to grind every single day.
Barbara had an accepted agreement with a group of people who owned probably 16 buildings.
And Barb came up with the idea of a sort of a one-price sale. All two-bedroom apartments were priced the same, whether they were on the second floor, the 10th floor, with views, without views, or one-bedroom apartments, the same thing.
I only announced it to my salespeople, really because I didn't have any money to advertise, and I told them to bring only one customer each. There wasn't enough to go around. 88 apartments, first come, first serve.
It was that morning of April 17th, and there was a line around the block.
And it was bedlam.
And we sold all of those apartments within an hour flat, and I made over $1 million in commissions.
She survived when many didn't survive.
got us through the recession. I paid back all of my debt, and I opened a new office, another new office, right in the midst of the recession, which blew my competitors away. They were intimidated. But that's what saved my butt. Once we started making a profit, for me, it was license to kill. I could think of a new idea and afford to pay for it. I decided to take all of our apartments and put them on videotape so that customers no longer had to go out and look at apartments. And none of my salespeople ever handed out the tape. It was a $77,000 mistake of thousands upon thousands of tapes that nobody wanted. But all the good things happen on the heels of a bad failure. And as luck would have it, I was approaching my next sales meeting, and my husband Bill was playing war games for the United States Navy because he was a Navy captain. And he talked about this new government thing called the internet.
I really recommend you do something about that and get involved with it.
I asked a few questions and I saw my safe face. And I immediately went to the office and registered CorcoranGroup.com. No one ever heard of .coms then. And I threw all of those old videotapes on CorcoranGroup.com.
We were one of the first websites in the business.
In the first week, bang, bang, I got 2 sales out of London, sight unseen. And I knew I had stepped in gold.
She was a leader. I mean, people followed what she was doing.
And what an advantage it was. It took me probably from 18th position in the market up to 4.
It's changed the business all over the world.
In my family, the women had babies like rabbits. You just assumed you could have a baby whenever you wanted, and I assumed when I was ready to have children, I'd have children. It wasn't until I married Bill Higgins and was 40 that I really wanted children.
Apparently it was important. She went through a lot to have Tommy.
Yeah, it was tough. It took a while.
So I tried the in vitro method, 7 tries, but before the last one, nothing was working. And so I chose my youngest, most darling sister, Florence. And she gave me her eggs. And out of those baby eggs, my son Tommy was finally born.
My mother told me that the day I was born was the happiest day of her life.
I thought I'd have another 10 in the next 10 years, but it wasn't in the cards. And then I, of course, adopted my daughter Kate 10 years after that.
She felt she had a lot to give to a child that was being born into the world with either no parents or was being given away.
I was a late bloomer in the parenting department, but the best thing I ever did. If I had missed that, I think I'd cry from here to my grave. But that also started the unwinding of the business for me, in a way, because I never loved my company as much as I loved my kid ever again.
I think it hurt my mom as much as it hurt me when she wasn't around.
Once I decided to sell my business, I had a buyer within a week, and they made me an offer of $22 million. And so I said I appreciated the offer and I'd take $66 million.
I was like, why 66? She says, it's my lucky number.
Not that the amount of money isn't significant today, but it was hugely significant back in '01.
I had no idea how hard it would be after I left the Corcoran Group.
It was a crazy transition, and I was very young, but I do remember like, wait, Mom's home? You know, like, wait, what's going on?
It was a hard adjustment for me. I remember being in my closet in the morning not knowing what clothes to wear when I wasn't going to the office. But what was great about that is I immediately knew that I had to do something else or I wasn't going to be a happy woman. I'd worked so hard and was always a somebody for so long, I had to be a somebody again.
Barbara was in the mix early on, but it wasn't a sure thing.
I told all my friends, I'm going to Hollywood. I was shocked that they had changed their mind. Hi, you've reached me, Barbara. Thanks for calling into my podcast hotline. You got a question you want answered? Just ask me here. Without the power of the Corcoran Group behind me, I was a voice. When I had the Corcoran Group behind me, I was the voice, vastly different. Let's take a short break to talk about a company I'm very fond of. I sat down and tried to figure out not how to reinvent myself, but how to repackage myself. And so I made a list of the few businesses that I thought I'd be good at. One was advertising, one was public relations, and the other is talking on TV.
So she says, I'm opening this business so that I'm known outside of New York.
But I had to go a roundabout way of getting there because no one would hire me. Until Fox News, I knew nothing about them.
First of all, it's Fox. Hello. What is anyone thinking?
They hired me as a political consultant.
Second of all, Barbara is great and smart and clever in a lot of things. Worldly and news current, she isn't, as a rule.
I studied the Senate, the Congress, all the stuff I never learned in school, I finally learned. Because I had to look half smart, and I was scared to death. Well, on the back of Fox News, I took myself to the Today Show and got hired as a real estate consultant.
We've got today real estate expert Barbara Corcoran here.
Good morning,
Barbara,
Al.
Good to see you again.
Good time for tenants right now.
It was like, oh my gosh, you know, she did it. Like she really pulled this off.
And then, of course, Shark Tank came along.
The characteristics that we were looking for in a shark, of course, you know, you have to be super charismatic. And to be able to assess an entrepreneur very quickly, you know, and give their experience and their assessment, honestly and brutally sometimes.
Next thing I knew it, I had a thick contract, which I signed without reading. I told all my friends, I'm going to Hollywood.
And I think she was very happy and pretty excited about it.
Barbara was in the mix early on, but it wasn't a sure thing.
I was shocked when the call came in that they had changed their mind.
You just don't say that to Barbara. You don't offer her something and say you're, in a sense, imply you're not good enough.
But then I did what I do very, very well. I got back up and stood up for myself. And I wrote a terrific, sharp email to Mark Burnett, who headed the studio.
And that tells you a lot about how Barbara works. When she sees something she wants, she goes and gets it.
Did she push herself? Yes. Was she pushy? Yes. But would it have happened without that? I don't think so.
And by the next afternoon, I was invited to compete for the seat.
And she did amazing from the first pitch on. It was just like, go.
I need to be clear on this before I write you off as a nut job, which I'm trying not to do.
I think it was a risk because she wasn't a venture capitalist. You know, she wasn't someone who, on a daily basis, invested in other companies.
The first 5 seasons of Shark Tank, I faked it. I've made you a good offer, I really believe, genuine offer. What are you gonna do about it? I always ask myself, what am I doing here? I didn't know what I was doing. I know real estate. I know real estate salespeople. And so I kind of got lucky because I started picking people I just liked.
To me, that's the riskiest approach to investing that there is, and that takes a lot of guts.
Who wants some fresh Maine lobster?
When Jim and Sabin stood on the set of Shark Tank, boy, could they sell.
We get our lobsters from shore to door in less than 24 hours.
She fell in love with us as people, more so than the financials.
I thought to myself, this is a moneymaker, this should be a franchise.
And so we asked her, like, well, what do you mean by franchise? She goes, this is a very scalable business. It's worked so well in Los Angeles. We're getting these requests to go to other cities throughout the country. She goes, franchise is the key.
Barbara, welcome to the family.
Thank you. And they, to date, are one of my most successful businesses.
I'm coming. Oh, it's a family show, guys.
Best thing I get out of Shark Tank is I get to relive the early days of building a business through many different eyes, many different partners, and get all that excitement all over again.
She wants to give back to entrepreneurs just like she received support. I think she wants to educate people that are watching the show that you don't have to be a mathematical or financial genius to be a great entrepreneur, because, yeah, Barbara admits she's not.
There's no question, and it's not a debate, she has survived a tremendous amount of adversity.
You've got to let a kid create the world of their own. You can't make them jam into something so narrow as how well you read or write.
And she's done it successfully and with great grace.
She's really like a good spirit.
Whoa, this looks like a toy. It doesn't even look real.
She's got the most generous heart. I'm not talking about financial generosity, it's giving of herself.
I don't think money was ever her God. It was all about helping people, and she built this phenomenal business.
Wait, no. Get this leg in front.
This woman just doesn't stop. She doesn't stop.
She's got more ideas in that pinky than most of us have in our whole bodies among 10,000 people.
Everyone has their own challenges, but she's so impressive in the way in which she decides to not let that stop her from acting.
If I could do it, if I could make a success of my life, anybody could. If I was written off as a dumb kid, what a mistake that was. There's so many kids written off. What a mistake it is. Anybody could make it. You just have to really work your buns off and have a dream, I guess, right?